Hello, biology students. Today we are reviewing the chromosome structure and we'll talk about sex and sex chromosomes. So what are chromosomes? A chromosome consists of a DNA molecule that is organized by histones. This organization allows the DNA to be packed tightly. In an eukaryotic cell, the DNA is organized into a characteristic number of chromosomes, and those chromosomes differ in length and shape. For example, in humans, we have 23 pairs, so a total of 46 chromosomes in each nucleus. In many animals, the sex chromosomes differ between males and females. The chromosomes that are the same in males and females are called autosomes. And the sex chromosomes are obviously called sex chromosomes. So let's take a look at a typical chromosome structure. So what we see here are two, this is one, this is the other, homologue chromosomes. Those homologue chromosomes are duplicated. So they have one chromatid and then they have a sister chromatid. Or this could be the sister chromatid and this here could be the chromatid. So they are duplicated because you have two identical copies or two identical chromatids. And they are homologue because these are the same chromosomes. So they could be both chromosome 1 or both chromosome 4. However, even though they are the same, they are not identical. You receive one chromosome from your father and one chromosome from your mother. They code for a similar set of genes. However, the genes that you inherited from your father might be different than the genes that you inherited from your mother. Think about hair color or eye color. Look a little bit more at the structure. So in the middle here, we have the centromere. This part here and this part here, these are the centromeres. And this is where the two sister chromatids connect. Then at the very end of a chromosome, we have what we call the telomeres. This here would be like an arm of a chromosome, but the very end is a telomere. Now, when you look at an unduplicated chromosome, it would be just like one linear chromosome that doesn't have this typical X structure. So let's repeat. What we see here are two homologue chromosomes that have two sister chromatids that are identical. The homologue chromosomes, however, are not identical. And an unduplicated chromosome is essentially a sister chromatid. Now we dig a little bit deeper into the chromosome structure. A DNA molecule, this is what makes up a huge part of a chromosome. So a DNA molecule consists of two strands that are wound into a double helix, which looks similar to a spiral ladder. In a duplicated condensed chromosome, we'll find those two long filaments that then form this characteristic X shape. So this is what we have seen as this X shape in the previous slide. Each of those sister chromatids consist of DNA that is wrapped around proteins, and those proteins are called histones. We call the DNA histone spool a nucleosome. So during the majority of the cell cycle, the chromosomes are what we would call relaxed. So we've seen the chromatin within the nucleus when you're talking about eukaryotic organisms. So the chromatin is relaxed and it doesn't have this typical X shape of a chromosome. Now in this picture, it looks like we would take the DNA out of the chromosome. However, in this picture, we see now here that this is the DNA. So we are kind of enlarging the DNA. And it looks a little bit like we take the chromosome or the DNA out of the nucleus. This is not the case. The DNA in a eukaryotic cell always stays in the nucleus. However, only during meiosis, the nuclear membrane might dissolve. But during a normal cell cycle that is not preparing for meiosis, the chromatin or the DNA, the chromosomes always stay within the nucleus. So when you now look here at the DNA, this DNA is a long, thin strand that is wound around those histones, and then they form those nucleosomes. So here we see our DNA double helix, which has the shape of a spiral ladder. And then we see here that they wrap around those proteins. These are the histones. And then this wrapping around the proteins, those DNA that is wrapped around the histones, are now what we call a nucleosome. So this unit here would be a nucleosome. This allows us to condense the DNA until it reaches this typical X-like structure. And again, here, the very end, this is the telomere. Then here in the middle, we see the centrosome. This is where the two sister chromatids connect. And then here we have an arm of a chromosome, or another arm of a chromosome, just the very end on all four sides here. These are the telomeres. Okay, so this was a short recap about the chromosome structure. Now we are looking at what we call a karyotype. And with a karyotype, we can actually identify a chromosome number. So the total number of chromosomes in a eukaryotic cell is very characteristic for each species. As I mentioned before, humans have 46 chromosomes in each nucleus. So human body cells have 2 of each type of chromosome. And though their chromosome number is what we call diploid, or 2n. And when we look at those chromosomes, this will be a karyotype that shows how many chromosomes are in an individual cell. And it can also give us some insight about major structural abnormalities. So here we see 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosome. So this here is a chromosome 1, this here is a chromosome 1. So these are the homologue chromosomes. Again, here, homologue chromosomes. You see that those chromosomes don't have this typical X-like structure, so we can assume that those chromosomes might not be duplicated. Now, up to chromosome 22, these are all the autosomes. But then here we see an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is substantially smaller than the X chromosome. Now, when you look at this, can you tell me, or do you know, if this is the karyotype of a female or of a male? And yes, you guessed right. Only males have an X and a Y chromosome. If this would be a cell of a female body, we would actually have 2 of the X chromosomes. So 2 of those X chromosomes here. The sex chromosomes, so these here are the sex chromosomes, they differ between males and females in most organisms. And human females have 2 X chromosomes, and human males have an X and a Y chromosome.